Welcome back. Prime Minister Modi's trip to France, which is on its last leg, is a culmination of the advanced India-France relationship. He visited the historic Mazarge cemetery and paid tribute to the Indian soldiers who made sacrifices fighting in the Great War, which is World War I. Prime Minister Modi laid a wreath composed of tricolour-themed flowers at a solemn ceremony held at the cemetery. Following this tribute, Prime Minister Modi and President Macron jointly inaugurated India's new consulate in France's Marseille city. Later, a joint statement was issued by both countries. India and France have agreed to work closely in areas such as civil nuclear energy, economic corridor, amongst others. India-France signed 10 agreements, which include India-France Declaration on AI, launch of the logo for the India-France Year of Innovation 2026, letter of intent to establish the Indo-French Center for the Digital Sciences, agreement for hosting 10 Indian startups at the French Startup Incubator Station, declaration of intent on establishment of partnership on advanced modular reactors and small modular reactors, and joint declaration of intent on triangular development cooperation as well. Well, so far it's been a wonderful trip, and we've been seeing visuals of the bonhomie and the friendship that is on full display here, but we'll also get some perspective from somebody who understands what these overtures and optics mean. Mr. Harshvardhan Shringla, former Foreign Secretary of India and India's ambassador to the United States and Chief Coordinator for India's G20 presidency in 2023, is joining us on the show. Mr. Shringla, sir, appreciate you taking out the time and speaking with NewsX. Well, it's heartening to see that both these great democracies who share a very rich, a very deep, a very profound culture are also cooperating on, modern elements and modern platforms that enable both the parties to contribute towards each other and grow autonomously as well. What do you make of it, sir?
Well, I think the India-France relationship is important precisely because it brings to India a level of technology, a level of trade and commerce, which I think is somewhere between what you would get, from Russia and what you would get from the United States. This is applicable not only in the area of defense, but also in cutting-edge, research and development. And that's why I think Prime Minister Modi's focus was on technology. He did, of course, attend the AI Direct Action Summit, but he also, I think, focused on visiting areas that were important to that relationship involving technology. For example, the International Thermonuclear Experiment Station, of which India is a vital part. Both President Macron and Prime Minister Modi were together on that visit. I think the emphasis, if you see, and as you mentioned, in terms of the outcomes, was on collaboration on startups, was in collaborations on research and development, was in collaboration on areas like advanced and small, nuclear modular reactors. I think this is all cutting edge stuff. And a lot of it is very, relevant to both countries, and it's relevant in the civilian sector, it's relevant in the defense sector. And I think France is an important, as I said, intermediary partner in terms of both technology and defense. And that relationship has been a solid strategic partnership. So you have two important visits, one after the other, first to France with a long-standing, friend and strategic partner, and then to the United States, which is, of course, very, very global, comprehensive strategic partner as well.
And so you're absolutely spot on. There is obviously, a lot of excitement over the new consulate, which is opened in Marseille. How do you look at that? This is obviously indicative of the fact that the people-to-people connect that India and France have enjoyed for decades now is only getting cemented. It's only improving further with each passing day, and this development is a testament to that.
Yes, I think you're right that this is definitely a very important indication of the expanding relationship between India and the US, and also the fact that the Indian community is more widespread. beyond Paris, which has always had a number of Indian students, academics, commercial people, etc. But Marseille is also very important because it's a gateway from Europe into Africa. When we talk about the India Middle East, Europe Middle East economic corridor, when we talk about the French India corridor, which you referred to, I think Marseille becomes an important gateway in all of this. And it's an important port city, it's an important trading city, and an important point of contact in the south of France. And I think this is an important step that the two countries have taken. And as I said, it demonstrates the highest level of interest in taking that partnership forward.
You're absolutely right, sir. And sir, like you rightly said in your first response, that the Prime Minister is also going to be flying to the United States. Right after this, there has been some water that has flown under the bridge. If you talk about some of the deportation charter that has taken place between both the countries. You have a new leader in Donald Trump who seems to be very aggressive. On the backdrop of what India has been able to achieve and culminate with the French, how do you foresee the Prime Minister and the Americans taking this partnership that India and America have very recently cultivated to the next level going forward?
Well, every US president in the past quarter century or so has added his own, I would say, value to the relationship. President Trump had done that in his first term. President Biden, I think, did that very significantly also. And there is no doubt that in Trump 2.0, that relationship is poised to take the next big leap in the strategic partnership. And I think this visit to Prime Minister Modi's is very important in that sense. It's not just symbolic, because it is, very, very a visit that comes soon after President Trump has taken office. Prime Minister Modi is only the fourth foreign leader to visit the United States, in Trump 2.0. But it's also the earliest visit by any Indian Prime Minister to the United States after a US president has taken over. So it has, all of this, it shows that both leaders attach great importance to the relationship. I think both leaders will want to reset that connect that we saw in Howdy Modi and Namaste Trump in 2019 and 20. Both leaders will have a great convergence on how to deal with global issues, whether it's putting an end to conflicts in Europe or the Middle East, whether it is in terms of restoring the focus to the Indo-Pacific, revitalizing, or continuing the close connect in the Quad, announcing, President Trump's own visit later in the year to India in connection with the Quad Summit that will take place in India. A lot of things are on the table, and I think it's an important time, as I said, to look at what lies ahead in terms of this very important strategic partnership under a very, very strong Trump 2.0 and a very strong leadership of Prime Minister Modi in India.
So one last question before we let you go. Sir, artificial intelligence, AI, is the talk of the town. We have seen headlines right from ChatGPT to now DeepSeek, in fact, taking center stage in almost every prominent headline in the world. There is a pressure on India as well to come up with its own mandate when it comes to artificial intelligence. How do you think that is also likely to define our relationship with various partner countries, considering that when you talk about technology, India is always mentioned in that breath?
Well, we are an important, player when it comes to technology, because we have focused a lot on providing, the necessary investment in our own domestic AI sector and its indigenous development. And as our Minister of IT, I think, recently conveyed, there is a lot of, I would say, effort going into supporting an AI infrastructure that I think will be definitely, among the ones that are cutting edge on a global basis. Prime Minister Modi's own visit to France for the AI Direct Action Summit and his visit to the United States also, I think, will focus a great deal on collaboration on the AI sector, because President Trump has recently announced a $500 billion investment in AI, along with some of the big AI giants in America. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled, I'm told, to meet tech and industry leaders, including possibly Elon Musk, and I'm sure the conversation will focus a great deal on manufacturing, but also on technology with the focus on AI. And the whole endeavor is to work with our partners to make India also one of the great, I would say, path breakers when it comes to this new technology that is going to be very, very critical to the way the world moves forward in the next few decades. AI is going to be the dominant, I would say, force in determining new technologies, new systems, and in fact a way of life, how we conduct our own lives, I think will be dominated by AI, and we need to be on top of it. And I think we also need to be on top of the regulatory mechanisms, which is again why Prime Minister Modi was a co-chair of that AI summit, because we need to be there when global rules are set and global norms on how to deal with AI, how to develop AI, how to encourage research on AI comes up on the international stage.
Mr. Shringla, appreciate you joining us, sir. Thank you so much for those valuable insights and that unique perspective. Thank you so much. Mr. Shringla, former Foreign Secretary of India, was with us on this important day. Well, Prime Minister Modi is in Marseille, France's second largest city. He has inaugurated India's newest consulate and paid homage to Indian soldiers that were martyred in the First and Second World Wars at the Mazargues War Cemetery. Well, the city, the home of Napoleon Bonaparte and legendary footballer Zinedine Zidane, also known as Zizou, holds a significant place in India's freedom struggle. It is the same site where Veer Savarkar made a daring attempt to escape British custody. Well, on 1st July, way back in 1910, more than 100 years ago, 115 years ago, the ship SS Moria sailed from London and docked at the Marseille port a week later. The liner was carrying an important passenger on board. His name was Veer Savarkar, who was 27 at that point in time. He had gone to England in 1906 to study law. It had been a very popular destination. He had been arrested by sleuths of the Scotland Yard on the 13th of March 1910 at the Victoria Station in London for his revolutionary and anti-British ideas and activities. Savarkar was being sent to India to stand trial on charges of waging war against the British Empire and abetment to the murder of A.M.T. Jackson, the district magistrate of Nasik. Jackson, who projected himself as an Indophile, yet was brutal towards nationalists and natives at the receiving end of their colonial overlords, was assassinated by revolutionary Anand Kanhare in 1909. On board the ship, a stern vigil was maintained on Savarkar by the police, lest he escaped. He was kept in a cabin which did not have a porthole, and he had to take his meals seated between two officers. He was not allowed to walk or sit alone, but Savarkar was determined to flee his captors. The opportunity to do so came as the ship docked at the port of Marseille in France on the 8th of July 1910. Around 6:15 a.m. in the morning that day, Savarkar asked to be taken to the ship's toilet. Two head constables, Amar Singh Sakharam Singh and from Nashik and Mohammad Siddiqui from Pune, stood guard as Savarkar entered the ship's lavatory. He then bolted the door from inside and was wriggling out of the porthole. When the constables got wind of his escape attempt, they raised an alarm. However, the boat was just a few feet away from the docks and Savarkar swam to the quay and began running. The constables and the deck steward were in hot pursuit. An exhausted Savarkar had run about 100 meters when he came across a French gendarme and asked him to take him into custody. He intended to seek political asylum in France. However, the French policemen hardly understood any English and apprehended him. Savarkar was then handed over to the two constables despite international laws that protected political asylum seekers, and the SS Moria promptly left Marseille the next day. However, this controversial extradition sparked a diplomatic dispute between Britain and France. Many French activists and leaders protested against the action taken by British forces on French soil and argued that Savarkar should not have been returned. In fact, on 12th of July 1910, Jean Longuet, a socialist leader and grandson of Karl Marx, wrote a critical piece in his L'Humanite pointing to an abominable violation of the right of asylum. The legality of this recapture on French soil was questioned and taken to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague in October 1910. However, in February 1911, the tribunal ruled in favor of the British authorities. In the interim, that is in December 1910 and January 1911, Savarkar was sentenced to 2 years for life by Bombay High Court, each of 25 years for sedition and the murder of Jackson. In fact, the two terms were not to run concurrently, but one after the other, which meant that he would be released only in December 1960, when he was perhaps 78 years of age. Savarkar was ultimately imprisoned in the infamous cellular jail in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands on the 4th of July 1910. The rest, as they say, is history. However, the legend around Savarkar and his leap at Marseille, described as Trikhandat Gajleli Udi, or the world-famous jump, would continue to follow Savarkar even later into his life. Well, that was a piece of history for you, and it obviously brings a huge smile to everyone's face, because it is an era which is bygone now, and it is spectacular to read and hear about it, especially when the Prime Minister is or was in the city of Marseille. Mr. Ravi Bhatt, senior historian, is joining us on the broadcast. Also Sumit Peer, senior political commentator, with us on the show. Uday Mahurkar, author of Veer Savarkar, the man who could have prevented partition, also joins us on the show. Let me start with Mr. Uday Mahurkar. Mr. Mahurkar, appreciate you joining us, sir. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir. So, This is a fascinating story. It led to an upheaval concerning human rights when Veer Savarkar, a very intrepid figure in Indian history and politics, made that jump, but unfortunately could not escape. What more can you shed light on, sir, when you talk about the history associated in terms of India or Indians in France, and Veer Savarkar and his history when in connection to France, because the Prime Minister is there. We are hailing this partnership between two great democracies.
You see, Savarkar was the key revolutionary in India House in England. India House was a place which was opened by Shyamji Krishna Verma, the great thinker and revolutionary himself. And it was meant to encourage Indian patriots in England who came to study in England. And the rest is history. We all know that how Savarkar was caught on London railway station, and then tried for he was tried for Anand Kanhere, the murder of a British officer in Nashik by Anand Kanhere, and he was charged with supplying the pistol from England to India. And also he was also held. He was also one of the accused in the Madanlal Dhingra case, wherein Madanlal Dhingra killed an officer called Shakespeare. So now you see, I think we should focus on how Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, is trying to. Savarkar was on the sidelines for so many years, in spite of his great contribution as a revolutionary and as a thinker, as a father of India's national security. But for some reason, he was sidelined, and the way the Prime Minister is trying to bring Savarkar up, and the way he has taken this opportunity to remember Savarkar while going to this place. This incident is very well known, as you know. He was being taken in a ship after being sentenced from England to India, and near the Marseilles port, he jumped down from the ship, and he swam for quite a few kilometers before reaching the port. And at the port, the French police could not. He tried to say that I am a political prisoner, but then the French police was not so informed, and he did not believe him, and he was caught and handed over to the British authorities. And thereafter, a very big fight was fought at The Hague, where many revolutionaries supported, many French, French figures supported Savarkar, and they wanted Savarkar to be freed. They wanted Savarkar to be freed, but at that time there was some tie-up between the French government and the British government, and Savarkar,
So could you
the
please
French did
open
not
your
support
camera,
Savarkar.
sir? There seems to be an issue with your video. If you can, sir, close and open your camera once again, sir. We are unable to see you.
Okay, can you see me now?
Yeah, we can see you, sir. Thank you for that. Go on, sir.
Yeah. So, basically, you have to understand one thing. We have to we have to really appreciate the Prime Minister, I mean, you see, First World War and Second World War, Indian soldiers, were mainly responsible for the victory of the Allied forces, against the Axis powers. So, this is a very big point where you can impress the Western world that we were the people, our soldiers paid the heaviest price for your victory. So, these nuances of foreign policy were never understood by, were hardly understood by the previous governments, He went to Haifa also last time, So, I think the way he tries to inculcate, on one hand, a spirit of nationalism and patriotism, while going to Marseilles and remembering Savarkar is something which really inspires the youth also,
Right,
because
sir.
youth also was kept away from Savarkar.
Absolutely right, sir. In fact,
I think
yeah,
it's-
you're absolutely right, sir. In fact, Sumit Peer, even when we were growing up, Sumit, both of us have grown up in India. There was hardly a mention or a talk of the glorious past or the intrepid life that Veer Savarkar had. It was hardly mentioned in any books. There were hardly any stories in newspapers as well, which was perhaps the most recent form of recognizable knowledge that one could absorb. All of that has changed. There is this new dawn. There is this perspective about a number of these heroes who deserved their day under the sun since decades.
Vinny, thank you very much for having me on your show. And, you brought up the right subject here, because what you are pointing out to, there was a very subtle conspiracy, there was a very subtle plan, wherein all such real heroes were sidelined, wherein all such heroes were kept aside, and especially the people who had anything to do with Sangh or the RSS had to be buried. Their names, their aura, their image, everything had to be buried. And even today, Sriman Rahul Gandhi ji gets irked by the word Savarkar. He says, "Main Savarkar nahi, main Gandhi hu." So these are the kind of connotations which we see happening every day. Now, what is Prime Minister Modi doing? Prime Minister Modi is telling the India, is telling the Bharat, is telling the Congress, is telling the world, Savarkar is a national treasure. Savarkar ji is a national hero. Savarkar ji is not an enigma. Savarkar ji is not untouchable, for the lack of better word I'm using this, is not untouchable, and is not the demon which you are trying to create. He has really put his heart and soul for India, and he has fought for India. When he dared this escape in Marseille, he dared all the bullets. He swam there. French police could not talk English, and even there was a lot of tamasha which happened in The Hague. And it is even believed, Vinny, that the Britishers had to pay money or had to use corruption to get their way out of Hague. And then he was sent to the cellular jail. He again escapes from there. When you have people who are such brave, patriotic credentials, this is what irks the Nehru Gandhi Parivar, and this is what irks the opposition, because for them, everything what India has been starts from a Nehru and ends with a Gandhi. So beyond that, koi tha nahi. When such people start coming into the picture, this is really irritant for them. And when Prime Minister Modi goes to Marseille and now does the inauguration of the new consulate, and then he also pays homage to these soldiers which had the World War II. So what the problem here is, what Nehru could not think about, or Mrs. Gandhi could not think about, how come Prime Minister Modi is able to think that? How come you are able to give this credit to the people where it needs to be deserved? Because we were taught, when we read our history, there was nothing between Nehru ji and Gandhi ji. बीच में तो कुछ था ही नहीं. So suddenly when these things come up, they kind of put the churn, they upset the apple cart, and this is what irks them. I think these people who really deserve to get that status of the national hero, they have been wiped out from the history books. Our books are still filled up with Tipu Sultan, Shah Jahan, Akbar, Babar. Avdali and Ghazni, and the people who came from the out of India, who did rape, murder, looted and plundered our wealth. They are the heroes of the India. They've been put at least projected as that. But the real heroes who put their life on the dock and who every day lived to die another day, they have been carefully wiped out of the history, and there is not even a Savarkar memorial somewhere. So when Prime Minister Modi is doing this, he is setting these historical wrongs right. And that is the way it has to be done. And that is how the people will, if you don't regard and recognize your heroes, don't expect the people in the world to regard and recognize them. Vineet, you had the charity begins at home. You and me have to recognize them first. Our kids have to know who is Veer Savarkar. Then you will expect French or British or Germans or anybody else to come and talk for us. This is the clock which is being unturned by Prime Minister Modi, and that is what is the relevance. Besides economic impacts, besides AI, besides other things, this is a very important, forgotten part of the history which needs to be highlighted to the world and needs to be highlighted to Indian civilization, ethos, and Bharatiyata as such, Vineet.
All right, let me also rope in Mr. Ravi Bhatt, senior historian, into this conversation. Mr. Bhatt.
Yes.
All right, sir. Veer Savarkar and his legacy in Marseille, and the Prime Minister, not only elucidating the importance of forgotten heroes, but acknowledging them on these important trips. What do you make of it?
See, let me tell you very honestly, I endorse what Sumit has already said. See, Veer Savarkar was one of the rarest of rare patriot who was intellectually evolved as well on the ground level also. He was totally evolved. I'll give you an example. That he was the first person who has called the prize 157. The Britishers used to call it, they used to dismiss it as a Sepoy mutiny. That's a very funny thing. But he was the person who the first time Veer Savarkar has coined this term, the first war of independence. Bharat ka Pratham Swatantrata Sangram. He has coined this in his book. So you can understand his intellectual level. Because by naming it first war of independence, he had tried to intellectually stimulate the Indians' mindset, number one. And number two, as it has been already discussed by other spokespersons, other speakers, as well as you, that how he had such a courage. Not only he was intellectual courage he had the courage to escape also by putting his life in danger in the Marseillais, when from the ship, from the porthole, he had on the 8th of July, he had 1910, he tried to escape from there. So this is a very rare combination. Because in the freedom struggle we find on one hand Mahatma Gandhi is there, Nehru is there, others are there, who have only intellectually stimulated people, and probably at the intellectual level they have tried to get the independence. But on practical ground there are hardly anyone. So he is a rare combination. My salute to him, and I think he should be given a special place in the primary history books of Indian schools. Primary schools, I'm telling you,
okay.
So that
all right, let me also rope in Professor Vivek Singh and get him to describe what he feels about Veer Savarkar. Professor Singh, do you think that it's about time that Veer Savarkar should find a prominent spot in our history books?
Vineet, no doubt he is a great intellectual, he was a great intellectual, and he had to get his place. But it's very important to understand here that we are proud of our history, our freedom fighters, and especially Veer Savarkar, who was an intellectual and national hero, and that we have to consider. After reaching the French city, Marseille, PM Modi has rightly said, because it's a historical incident which took place and Veer Savarkar was part of that. So as far as relevance is concerned, there is historical relevance. That's why Prime Minister Narendra Modi pointed out that incident. So there is no doubt that Veer Savarkar is known for his courage, and Veer Savarkar was jumped from the British ship and in the middle of the ocean on July 8, 1910. So it was not jump of Veer Savarkar, it was jump for India for the freedom struggle. So there was, we know the history, there was extradition, there was dispute between Britain and France, And finally, Savarkar went for jail for 25 years in the cellular jail. So we can understand the level of intellectuality, the level of courage, the level of sacrifice that Veer Savarkar has done for the country. So there is no doubt that it has to be the part of syllabus of the primary book as well as the higher education. So ultimately, it's very important to understand that I'm not denying that. France and India had very good trade relation, strategic partnership, cultural relation.
All right,
and both
sir.
countries are
We've
working
completely run out
in
of time, but appreciate your sentiments and appreciate the conversation that we have had. We will continue to talk about this landmark visit that the Prime Minister undertook right after the short break.